I didn't intend to upload another video for a few weeks, but some things have come up in the last week that I think would be interesting to discuss or address in a video, especially because some of them are more visual than others, particularly what I have right now, which is related to the thesis of this video, actually. And as you can notice, I have the Monroe right here, and I'm looking in the mirror to find it, and the Celebritarian cross up here on my forehead. And that deals with the topic of this video, Marilyn Manson. And the Charles Manson mark was on his forehead, the swastika. But actually, the thing that I'm going to read today is a poetry submission that I made for an upcoming book of selected works and art pieces to be dedicated to Marilyn Manson and given to a charity of his choice, the proceeds of which, of course. And it was weird to participate in because even though he has made such a profound effect on my art and my life, I'm not interested in directly addressing him in it, aside from the little homages I have within my books. The Clockwork and the Stars, Clover will be listening to his music. The Final Gospels, there was a lot of the same influences were shared between the Final Gospels and Marilyn Manson's The Triptych. But I was never interested in directly addressing him through my art or writing anything for or to him, because I feel like the line is so thin between homage and plagiarism, and I really didn't want to walk it, especially if it would end up being something disgraceful or disrespectful to him. And so what I originally wrote was just a literal thank you letter titled "We Are All Your Children Now," obviously a reference to Nightmare on Elm Street. And that didn't really work out. It wasn't the people running the portraits is what it's called, this book. They didn't really want direct messages. They wanted the art to be the message, which I totally understand. So I ended up writing a poem that sort of had the same topic of just a thank you. I was going to read it and sort of dissect it while I go over this. So I'm going to pull it up on the computer now. Yes, I'm reading it directly off the screen, so I won't be able to see myself, not that that matters. And it's called Paint Them Red by Todd Crawford. Paint Them Red being an allusion to Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, of course, with the flowers and the queen. You know it just as well as I do. And there's 3 sections to the poem, as typically my poems have. It started from the Divine Comedy, and 3, the number of power, the Holy Trinity, the Unholy Trinity. I just always keep that present in my poetry, it seems like, or am influenced by them. And the first little mini poem is titled "The Gardener," in reference to the song that Manson had performed. It goes, "The gardener, dressed double-crossed, proclaiming a revival of Desauta's days, both a rain dancer channeling Morrison and the tallest weed. He sold us his shadow wherein we grow." And the next one is titled "Red Earth," which is a reference to his album Hollywood, and also the garden, which the gardener is dancing for the rain to visit. And it goes, "The red earth poisons us in our roots, infertile, unloving. The only truth of its cultivation, the grapes of wrath." I'm sorry, the only fruit, not the only truth. And the next portion is "The flower, sprung from Baudelaire's garden, pricked by Pan's flute to stab at the heavens. His dew raining down upon our naivety intoxicates us in this moment of clarity." I'm just going to dissect it for you guys a little bit, just because it's one of those rules that you're always told not to do. You always have to leave poetry up to the reader to decide, or keep it ambiguous. That's what half the scholars seem to say. The other half says that it only means one thing, and I fall in between, sort of. But I think this is really a poem that does deserve to be looked at and analyzed, and if it doesn't work out, I don't really care. It's not in a book or anything of mine. It's just something that I like, and it uses a lot of themes that Manson himself or other artists have presented, not me. So I'm just interpreting it into my own mind, especially the new album Born Villain, and how I see that in relation to Marilyn Manson the artist and the fans. So The Gardener is literally about Marilyn Manson personifying this gardener, dressing double-crossed, cross-dressing, proclaiming a revival of De Sada's days, as in 120 Days of Sodom, a book that we're both fond of, judging from his interviews. Both a rain dancer channeling Morrison and The Tallest Weed. The rain dancer channeling Morrison, I really like that. I think that really sums up his stage presence and what he's been going for the last few years, especially performing with the Doors finally. The Tallest Weed is clearly a reference to the song from Antichrist Superstar. And he sold us his shadow, wherein we grow. And that references the celebritarian sort of motto that was brought up on shirts. Of course, celebritarian being very ambiguous and subjective as to whether it even really exists. A lot of fans speculate it doesn't. Others say it's like the new Illuminati. Anyways, moving on to the next poem. The red earth poisons us in our roots, infertile, unloving. I think that actually could be attributed to Mechanical Animals a little bit, as well as a clear Born Villain, Flowers of Evil reference. Of course, red earth is a Hollywood symbol, but the image of the red earth or society poisoning these flowers of evil in their roots, and it's just unfertile, and it doesn't love them, it doesn't want the flowers to grow from its surface, really sums up a lot of things that I think Manson has presented over the years throughout his various CDs, especially this last one. The only fruit of its cultivation, the grapes of wrath. And the novel The Grapes of Wrath deals with the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, desert type infertility economically and literally within the Dust Bowl. And of course, wrath being on the resentment that the flowers will grow out of the ground towards the soil or the red earth itself. Society, as I interpret it, other people say it's different. And the last and final poem, The Flower, sprung from Baudelaire's garden, pricked by Pan's flute. Sprung from Baudelaire's garden, once again, Flowers of Evil. He's the one who wrote that book of poetry, as I'm sure you all know much better than I do. I haven't read the whole thing yet. Pricked by Pan's flute. Pan, once again, probably obvious, mythological creature that will play his flute whenever the end of the world is coming. He sort of summons it. And when he is playing this flute, the flowers of evil grow out of the earth. And pricked isn't like pricking a dog ear, not pricked isn't like penises growing from the ground. Although that would probably be a more interesting poem. The stab at the heavens, once again, growing, getting larger, but also another sort of very unnaturalistic imagery rather than flowers, which are very natural. It's the inverse of that, flowers of evil. His dew raining down upon our naivety intoxicates us in this moment of clarity. His dew raining down upon our naivety, that just refers to Marilyn Manson himself, his dew being the songs or the artwork or whatever it may be that he's expressing, raining down upon us and giving us that gift, so to speak, intoxicates us in this moment of clarity. It's just a term I really like, because a moment of clarity typically refers to somebody who is a drunkard or an alcoholic or an addict of some sort, and a moment of clarity is when they sort of realize they have a problem. And I always use moment of clarity as in just sober-minded, you're not, your thoughts aren't clouded. And I really think that's what listening to a good song can be for a lot of people, just realizing that they have this within themselves, this emotion or this thought or philosophy, but it took the dew to rain down upon them, the music, for them to realize this. And that really sums up individually Paint Them Red, except for, of course, being, not only is there 3 poems, but each one is 5 lines long, and 3 times 5 equals 15. And I just thought that would be a cool thing to do. And as far as that goes, that pretty much sums up that poem or that part of the video. Another thing I wanted to address was my author photo that I released for the pilgrimage, or the little collection of the potential author photos. And it had me, as I'm sure whoever's seen this video probably has me on Facebook. I probably know everybody who's seen this video, but I had red lipstick on, eyeliner, meant to emulate the Eye of Horus, or Amon-Ra's makeup. And it really sums up the narcissism and superficiality of the main character of The Pilgrimage. And I've always been a visual artist, you know, makeup or androgyny. It's nothing new. I've been doing that stuff since I was 11 in terms of my writing. So for me to embody that literally as an artist, I don't really see why some people, some members of my family or people I went to school with are seeing this and shocked or surprised at all that I would do such a thing. Because I've been alluding to it for literally over 5 years now, at least. And it's funny, one person used the term edgy and kind of harassed me about it a little bit, both publicly and privately. And I'm not doing anything to get anybody's attention but my own. I don't really care what people think about my books in that sense. I'm not trying to get a specific reaction. When I write, if something has to be funny, it has to be funny to me. It has to be hysterical to me because I'm a tough critic. I'm probably one of the toughest critics I've ever seen on a lot of movies or books or whatever else. So if something's going to be shocking, it has to shock me. If something's going to be scary, it has to make me fearful. If something's going to be beautiful, it has to touch me in some way. And I don't mean that as in I try to be a certain way as a person, but, you know, if I'm not interested or engaged as a writer, who would be interested reading it? And I'm really the only person I've ever tried to impress. I just write the books that I want to read, or I used to draw the comics I wanted to own. And yeah, it's really nothing new. And there's going to be a lot more of it in the future, I'm sure. I know there's also been supportive people saying, oh, it's great that you're embracing your freakier side, or getting weird openly, because everybody's like that. And I agree, that is something that everybody has in common, these sort of things, but also I don't see it as weird or freaky, and I would never want to give off that message. I think that's too Tim Burton for me. I think of it as more naturalistic. It's been in society since, I don't know, at least Egyptian times, Mesopotamia, I learned about in history class, and therefore it's not weird just because it's uncommon in modern society. It's something very natural that a lot of people have done, perfectly sane, and it's not weird, it's not for attention. And whoever is saying that or making those claims about anybody, not myself, I don't care what people say about me so much as what people say about other people who are less secure than I am, then they're just uneducated, in my opinion. And that or prejudice, or both. Typically prejudice is the outcome of being uneducated. But the final thing I had to say, I just forgot it. I've been talking for about 14 minutes to myself. So it's not too surprising. Anyways, I'll just skip that. I will say that if you're interested in contributing to Portraits, this book from which I submitted the poem that I read to you guys, then I'll provide the link in the video description. And you get one page. It's landscape oriented. You have to make sure the formatting works. You can submit music, art, poetry. It has to be artistic. It can't be a personal message. And if you're interested, get a hold of those guys. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it's for a great cause, to thank somebody that's put so much into the world and show them that they did make a difference for a lot of people. That one person being Marilyn Manson, of course. And so yeah, hope this video wasn't too bad, being almost 15 minutes. And I'll get a hold of you guys next time I have something I don't want to write about.